The Sydney University Postgraduate Representative Association, or SUPRA for short, is a postgraduate student association at the University of Sydney. Formed in 1970 by science postgrads, SUPRA was formally acknowledged by the University of Sydney Senate in 1974 after years of debate. Because most postgraduate students at the time were research students, the Student Representative Council considered them to be junior academics and thus declined to admit them as members. There have been big shifts in SUPRA's constituency over the years, from predominantly domestic research students to a larger population of international coursework students. SUPRA continues to endure by keeping true to its core values and keeping students at the centre of everything they do.
Hi, I'm Mira Liu. I'm the current co-president of SUPRA. I've been involved in SUPRA since 2 years ago. By the time I was the education officer, and last year, about the same time, I was elected as the co-president of SUPRA.
I'm Jonathan Wooding. I was the president of SUPRA in 1989. I went on to have a career as an academic, and I'm currently the Professor of Celtic Studies at the University of Sydney, so I've come back to where I started, as it were.
My name's Jenny Leong. My current role is as the Greens member for Newtown in the New South Wales Parliament.
So my name's Thalia Anthony, and I was at SUPRA from about 2000 till 2004.
Hi, my name's John Fell. I'm the finance manager here. I've been here since 2001, on and off. I left for about a year and then came back in 05-06. I've seen lots of changes in the time I've been here.
My name's Tom Clark. I'm the chair of the academic board at Victoria University in Melbourne, and I was president of SUPRA in 1997-98 and then president of CAPA in 1998-99.
I guess on a daily basis, a lot of our work was conducted we did a lot of mail outs in those days by paper form, of course. It was a different era. Every month there was a special meeting between the president of the SRC, the president of SUPRA and the vice chancellor in the sort of very collegiate days that those were. And we also spent quite a lot of time producing publications, so that we felt that was a very important thing. We produced a student handbook every year, newsletters, things of that sort. There was no email when I was president, so it was all again mail outs. But I know that the students also felt that that was an important part of their engagement with the university, and students would drop into the office, and we used to let them use the photocopier and that sort of thing. And it was a way of building our relationships with students. University campus culture was sort of changing in the 80s, and with the advent of fees, it changed quite a lot more. I mean, when I started university in 1980, there were lots of clubs on campus. People came to the university all day. It was like going to school in a way. They went for the whole day, and there was a very vibrant campus culture. And I guess student organisations were part of that. But then again, I can't say attendance at student organisation meetings were always that large. But I think, it was a time when people came out and they had things to say, and they joined organisations to do that. But I wouldn't be in a position to really know how that works today. I know a lot of students are less often on the campus, and perhaps we live in a more fragmented world today, but I think we do our activism in different eras in the way that fits that era, and mine was pre-email, pre-internet, pre-mobile phone. It was just a different world, perhaps, but the same issues were there, and people had the same concerns a lot of the time, but there are new ones now, obviously. As I said, one of the key campaigns we worked on was a campaign against the reintroduction of fees for university courses. And by the time I came to the end of my presidency, I suppose we were looking at a question more of mitigating the impact of fees rather than being able to stop them altogether.
What was your involvement like with SUPRA? What kind of impact did you see from the work that SUPRA was doing?
Some really important impact. So some of it was out in public. The politics of higher education at that time in the late 1990s were very hotly contested, and it was really important for postgraduate students to know they had an organisation that was speaking for them. But I think postgraduate students at the University of Sydney didn't just want a shouting advocate. They wanted their advocacy body to be evidence-led and to be doing the research and to be engaging actively with the policy processes at the university to try to get outcomes. So there was public-facing stuff. Make no mistake, we're often in the news putting a postgraduate kind of perspective on funding cuts and on the commercialisation, the increasing reliance on full fee paying, and attempts to cut corners or at least to reduce quality controls. But at the same time, we were working very hard through the university's academic board and its committees, and lobbying the Vice Chancellor and the University Senate and so on to get real improvements for students on the ground, and I feel like we made a lot of headway there.
In the noughties, it was a really political time because we had a very conservative government under John Howard, and there were a lot of attacks on education, and we were very much under siege in terms of increasing fees for postgraduates, especially postgraduate coursework students, and felt generally as an arts student that the culture wars going on were inhibiting our freedom of expression and our, I guess, credibility as potential arts academics, but as arts scholars, to really have a voice in society.
I didn't have an election campaign as such. The way I found myself involved in SUPRA was an incredible group of people could see that the organisation was in disarray. It was being mismanaged, and a lot of money and SUPRA's reserves were being misspent in the interests of conservative agendas, but also just self-interest. People were buying themselves mobile phones and various digital devices. They were going on trips and doing other things and spending the reserves in a way that was not in the interests of postgrad students. Perhaps the best example of how bad the time was in that period was the fact that all of the windows at the SUPRA office at that stage, which was now no longer where it stands anymore, had all been tinted, so you couldn't actually see inside anymore, and the doors were locked. So the idea that people were accessing student services or using it as student space just didn't exist. So I was peripherally aware of all of this and was encouraged by someone to go along to an extraordinary general meeting to try and get change back over the organisation because of the previous rigging of elections and a whole lot of other concerns around the lack of engagement in the student organisation at that stage. So I went along. There was maybe 100 or so people in a lecture theatre for this extraordinary general meeting, and as part of that they asked for an interim period, they asked for 5 people to put up their hand to be named to be the interim body to oversee the elections, new fresh elections. And so I don't know what possessed me at that point, but I just thought, oh yeah, that's a nice thing I can do. I put up my hand along with 4 other people, and those 4 people, those other people became the interim body that was then set with one small task, which seemed very simple, which was to run and oversee new elections. A couple of days after that happened, we got handed Supreme Court summons, and we were being sued and taken to the Supreme Court by the former president. We had never met each other before, the 5 of us. We didn't know each other. We are now, as you can imagine, very good friends still. Those people were Jack Clegg, Rosemary Whitecross, Estelle Noonan, and myself, and Ruzi Aragi, who sadly tragically died just a very short time ago. But the 5 of us became the SUPRA 5. We appeared in the Supreme Court, worked with the university, we won the court case, we got control back of the organisation, the university appointed administrators, we had new fresh elections, and I was elected at president. By that stage we felt so invested in the organisation that we felt like we wanted to make sure that we hadn't been through all of this grief to do it. So all of us stood for elected positions. We were elected with a new strong council of people. I can't name them all here, but I trust we'll have a beautiful list of all of the councillors that will be there. And that's how I became the president of SUPRA. There was no amazing strategy of a normal election campaign with flyers and posters. I think, to me, what was so exciting was the idea of being able to restart the organisation after it had been shut down. So what we were able to do was to reactivate the International Student Travel Concessions campaign. We were able to reactivate and engage, making sure that we had a women's officer and an Indigenous officer and a queer officer, and that we were able to reconnect back with the university and show how postgrad students could make a genuine contribution to what was happening in university life and university campus. And it felt very much like everyone had written SUPRA off completely as an organisation and couldn't see the value of having postgraduate students involved in decision making and representing postgrad students on campus. And so to me, what was exciting was to see all of these small campaigns kicking off. There were campaigns around women's rights and reproductive rights. There was a push for discrimination against international students, the push for postgrad entitlements to say we need minimum standards for postgrad students in terms of access to study space, in terms of access to the kinds of supports that they get. The biggest challenge we faced at that time was actually around voluntary student unionism. And I think that to me was the biggest threat to SUPRA, to the SRC, to student organisations across the country. And being able to quickly reactivate all of these campaigns was so crucial to demonstrate to the university that there was a role and a value for SUPRA. And I think looking back retrospectively, I don't think it was a coincidence that the timing of the rigged elections and the mismanagement of funds was so closely linked to Liberal Party conservative forces and the timing of the voluntary student unionism legislation.
For the very reasons why it's important to do postgraduate study, not everybody in the world needs a postgraduate qualification, but they're incredibly valuable for many people. That they meet needs and aspirations in a way that nothing else can, and it's that quality of the learning and also that recognised quality of the qualification. That's the value. Now, for that value to maintain, so that a graduate transcript you pick up today is still worth something to you 30 or 40 or 50 years down the track, which I have to say my postgraduate qualification from the University of Sydney is still the most useful single qualification I've picked up in life, several decades later. For SUPRA to have quality input from its members, like good, thoughtful, passionate input from its members about what matters in their studying lives, means SUPRA can go to the university, go to its academic board and go to other bodies and say, this is what our members need, here are their aspirations, let's make sure that the rules, the course structures, the funding frameworks, let's make sure they are best serving the needs and aspirations of postgraduate students. And then So that is a reason to have postgrad organisations, but it's also a reason for students to engage actively, to make sure that when you notice something or when you care about something, that you let your postgrad association know and get involved.
It has changed a lot over the years. I've noticed a lot more international students now, actually as postgraduates, and also getting involved in SUPRA. And I think it's a great thing because the international students come here and they don't really know anybody, so SUPRA's terrific because they can make friends and socialise, and they can talk the issues of the day or whatever, and that's something that's changed a fair bit, I think. So it's a great place to be involved. I'd like to see more students get involved actually, and the rewards are there. If you get involved and you get on the council, maybe even become president or something like that. It's a fantastic way to do your study, to have another outlet while you're doing that study, and you learn, and the experience of actually being involved in an association like SUPRA is quite educational.
I can't say how important it was, and how much the people I knew who all became student reps all found it beneficial, And I think one of the problems of graduate study is that we're taught to think that research, for example, is the only thing, or getting the qualification is the only thing, but actually it's a great opportunity to get experience. I met with senior academics, people who were senior managers. I got to understand the culture of those things, and when I went to work in a university subsequently, I had a lot of ammunition there. I knew a lot about how things worked, and it meant that I was often a very effective person to be involved in some things, So it's a very good experience, very, very good experience.
SUPRA gave me a much broader network, and my focus has always been on social justice and politics and the rights of students at the time. And SUPRA was a really good outlet for communicating those types of demands around social justice for students, but also providing a platform where we could make political campaigns come to life at a much broader level, so through SUPRA and then later through the national body CAPA.
The only other thing that I think is really important to say is that the level of privilege and benefit that people that are part of student organisations get in their lives beyond that is just huge, and I would never have imagined that at the time, and I had no idea about that. But if I look back now to my time at SUPRA, to the interactions I had with people at the university, to people on the Senate, to participating in the academic board and having genuinely robust debates about watering down of appeals processes and watering down of the quality of courses and a whole lot of things like that. Those are negotiations and relationships that you maintain beyond university. And I think one of the things I worry about the most about the defunding of the higher education sector is the fact that students are under so much pressure to just do their course and get out and try and get a job, and under so much pressure to have to work so much while they're studying that the space to actually do things like be involved in your student organisation, to be involved as a student representative is less. But also it means your interaction with people that don't study in the same area as you is even less. And I think that's dangerous for the way our society and community works. I think, to me, the value of a student organisation was having the ability to have a chat as an art student, as an arts PhD student, to be able to have a conversation with someone doing a master's in economics, someone doing a PhD in agriculture, someone else writing on archaeology, someone else doing a law degree. Like, there were various conversations that happened that you wouldn't have got otherwise, and interactions you wouldn't have got otherwise, that I think shows the value of a university. And I worry that the more pressures financially there are on students and on universities, that cross connection disappears, and to me that is the value of an education.
Yeah, there've been lots of changes. They've been it becomes less political, but more towards like service provider kind of thing. But in the same time, we are also still representing the interests and of our postgraduate fellow students. Also, you can involve in SUPRA at any time. We are very much welcome everyone, and this is your student organization, and so basically you can involve in SUPRA at any time. Apart from that, I think just keep calm and carry on. And I'm sure we'll be meeting at the other side of the pandemic.